most importantly, I think we do need to step up. We need to take action. We kind of need to own it and say, you know what? I'm not going to wait for that person to call me, even though we haven't talked in 6 months and it's their turn to call me. I'm just going to reach out. I'm just going to reach out. I'm going to pick up the phone and call. I'm going to send them a text message. I'm going to write them a letter. I'm going to let them know I care about them.
Who are the world's most interesting people? And what fascinating, groundbreaking, incredible things can they teach us? In this new series, I leave our Science of People lab to interview my favorite authors, experts, and celebrities for them to share their best people hacks, social skills, and stories. And let me tell you, they have some juicy tips. This is a new series I'm calling The World's Most Interesting People. Hello, YouTube friends. I am so excited to talk to you today. We're talking all about friendship, and I am so thrilled to have on Adam Smiley Pozwalski. Adam, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
So let me brag about you for a second before we get started. So Adam, also known as Smiley, which is the best nickname I've ever heard, is a millennial workplace expert, internationally renowned keynote speaker, and the author of 3 books: The Quarter Life Breakthrough, The Breakthrough Speaker, and such a gem, Friendship in the Age of Loneliness, which we're going to be talking about today. He's spoken at companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, Unilever, Deloitte, Stanford University Graduate School of Business, Smiley's TED Talk, which I highly recommend. We'll link to it below the video, on the quarter life crisis, has been viewed over 1.5 million times, and he's spoken in front of 50,000 people in 20 countries. We're lucky to have him on our channel. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Vanessa. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. So you got me. So this book was highly recommended by a friend, and I just want to read, if you're okay with it.
Please.
I want to read what I was like, this is me. Okay, just listen to this story. I have 4,867 Facebook friends. My social media depicts this life of a successful author who travels around the world speaking and helping people figure out their purpose. I bump into people and the first thing they say to me is, Smiley, you're killing it. Your life is dope. I really want to tell them that I'm lonely. I'm constantly comparing myself to others. I'm tired of traveling. I miss my real friends. That despite how good everything looks online, my real life feels very different. I feel sad, overwhelmed, exhausted, burned out, and alone. Is that hard to write?
Yeah, it was hard to write. I think that was one of the impetuses for behind this book, was kind of saying, hey, my nickname is Smiley, right? I'm a happy, positive person. I obviously have a lot of social support in my life. I have a lot of social connections, but people like us can feel lonely too. Introverts can be lonely. Extroverts can be lonely. People that have 4,000 Facebook friends, people that are Instagram influencers can be lonely. Everyone can be lonely. And if you look at the data, that's kind of the case. Nearly 2/3 of Americans are lonely. So there's obviously going to be some Smileys and some Vanessas in that 2/3 of Americans, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really wanted to talk about my own experience of loneliness to kind of say, hey, this is something we're all grappling with. We're all dealing with this kind of friendship gap, right? So it's, okay, we have the connections, they're out there somewhere, but I don't feel them every day, right? I don't feel that depth. That, it's not just how many people but it's the quality of the relationships. I think that was one of the biggest things I found in my research. People aren't just looking for quantity, they're looking for quality. And actually, the scientific definition of loneliness that Julianne Holt-Lunstad, one of kind of the leading scholars in the field, says is loneliness is the discrepancy between one's desired level of connection and actual level of connection. It's the gap, right? Which probably explains why so many of us are lonely.
Yes. And one thing I realized when I was immediately in the very first pages, I realized that loneliness doesn't have a look. Right? Like you can't look at someone and be like, oh, he looks real lonely, right? In fact, it's so easy to cover up loneliness. It's easier than a pimple, right? The moment I smile, I don't look lonely. Here's my goal with today's video, and I want to share this with everyone watching, this is actually a guide to how to be a better friend. And I think that the antidote to loneliness is creating deeper, more fulfilling, more authentic connections. But that's hard, right? Like half the battle is going, oh, there's a gap, right? The first thing, and hopefully we can do this on this video, like check, oh, the amount of connection I want to have is different from the amount of connection I actually have. Okay, I have a gap. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is everything. And it's the hardest one, which is, how do I fix it? Do I get more friends? Do I deepen the friends that I already have? Do I have to change myself to be good friends with people? And so my entire mission today in this video is to talk about how to be a better friend. And I want to start with, do you remember your first really meaningful friend?
I do. And I think that that's a great frame. So I'm really excited for this conversation. But I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is near Boston. And in kindergarten, first grade, I got my first close friend. Phil and I actually ended up we were in school together. We lived like 3 blocks away from each other. So that was probably a big reason why we're so close. But we ended up being in school together in Cambridge from kindergarten all the way through senior year of high school. We were always like in the same class.
Okay, pause. So I want to call out what you just said, because I have a very similar story. And what's there is that friendship was easy. You lived 3 blocks from each other. You went to the same schools. You had all the same hobbies. You were learning how to read together. And so for anyone who's watching, who is like, am I bad at being a friend? Like, am I the only one who's having trouble making these friends? I think that it used to be so easy when we were kids because we were literally smushed together with other friends in camp, in school buses, in playgrounds, in neighborhoods. And so now I don't have that. You know, I barely know the people 3 blocks away. 3 blocks away? I don't know them.
Right. And also, if you think about it, when you're a kid, the expectation, like your job is to make friends. It's like they even say that in school, like, go make a friend at recess, go play now. Did you make a friend today? That's like what you're supposed to do. That's the point of your existence. And no one asks you that. No one asks you that like when you're an adult.
Well, now we're going to start. And so when I had the realization that I was hoping that your answer would be that we're now far away from people, one of the first challenges you have in the book is to make a friendship map. And I made one. So can you walk me through the friendship map, please?
Sure. So I think, you asked this kind of, where do you start? And I want to just kind of say there's no one way. And that was kind of the idea behind my book, was that this is the way to be a friend. This is the way to be a better friend. This is what friendship means in the digital age. Yeah. Here's an array of ways to be a better friend. I like to think of it as a cookbook, a cookbook full of recipes for friendship.
Yes.
Right. Or ways to be a better friend.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I'd like to start is kind of just to take stock of kind of where am I at with my friendships, right? Because we can't make any changes in progress unless we know where we are. And one way to do this is to kind of take out a map. And for those of you that don't live in the US, this would be in your country. And even for those of you that live everywhere, you put your international friends as well, and just map out where your friends are. Because especially now, I think this was important before the pandemic, but also now post-pandemic, I actually realized that a lot of my friends moved in the past year or two. I didn't even know where they lived, or, maybe they have families now, or they've moved. Just making a map and putting on the map where your friends are, so you can start to visualize it. And then be like, oh, I haven't reached out to that person in a while. We haven't been in touch in a while. Interesting. Now we're closer than we used to be. That's cool. How do I feel about that? Do I want to go deeper? Oh, there's someone I really want to go deeper with them. Maybe they don't want to go deeper with me. So you can start to visualize it. And that's like kind of a baseline to start with.
I like the visualizing and categorizing. And something that we talk about is like level 1, level 2, and level 3 friends. Like level 1 is very casual. Level 2 is you begin to know each other's dreams and worries. And level 3 is like, you would tell them everything. They almost know you better than themselves. And what's interesting about this is you can also, if you want to, a bonus exercise, you can put 1, 2, or 3 next to people's names and see if you want to level up, right? Like one thing that I learned is that I have a lot of like 1 and 2 friends, and I have actually more 2 friends than I thought, but I want more 3s. And to do that takes a certain level of investment, right? That means I have to go visit them. I have to call them.
What I like is that you put that, maybe on top of your desk or by your bedside table, and you're suddenly looking at it. So suddenly that's not, instead of your phone being the last thing you look at before you go to bed, or your to-do list, right? Or your Gmail, your Google Calendar, it's, oh, my friend map, my friends. I miss my friends. I want to talk to my friends. So suddenly that becomes the intention and kind of the focus. And then in terms of the outreach, I think what you said is correct. A big piece of my book is kind of saying, look, yes, we can wait for other people to do things for us. And hopefully we have friends in our lives that do. But most importantly, I think we do need to step up. We need to take action. We kind of need to own it and say, you know what? I'm not going to wait for that person to call me, even though we haven't talked in 6 months and it's their turn to call me. I'm just going to reach out. I'm going to pick up the phone and call. I'm going to send them a text message. I'm going to write them a letter. I'm going to let them know I care about them. That simple act, that simple gesture goes a long way.
Do you remember in Facebook when you used to be able to poke people?
Right.
It's like you have to be okay being the poker. Like
Yes.
you're the one who's going to initiate the poke. And this is perfect because one of my favorite tips you gave, which I actually think could be a starting place. If you're like, where do I start? Okay, so first, make a map, make a label of sort of where your friends are, how close are you, where do you want to go with them? The second thing I loved was I love how you said becoming a sheriff of good times.
Mm.
So this, I think, is a critical thing about ownership. As you said, we got to own it. We got to say, okay, we're going to do it. And so I think that being a sheriff of good times means you're going to say, okay, I'm going to shepherd it. I'm going to coordinate. I'm going to plan. I'm going to lead. I'm going to be in charge of good times. Can you tell me a little bit more about being a sheriff of good times and some examples too?
Yeah, so this is in reference to I used to work for a summer camp for adults called Camp Grounded, which is a tech-free summer camp for adults, digital detox, 4-day retreat in the woods where people come together and it's all about vulnerability, authentic connection, and play. Remember, we're talking the importance of play and meeting new friends and play, but for adults, not just for kids. Mm-hmm. So at camp, we actually have someone whose job it is to be a sheriff of good times. So instead of going around like we have in our society, where we have sheriffs that are patrolling and, giving out tickets if people break the law or making sure people aren't driving too fast or whatever sheriffs do, we actually have a sheriff of good times who's in charge of, is everyone having a good time? Or do you need a buddy to talk to? You look, and maybe the person's sitting alone because they want to sit alone, or they want to look up at a tree, or they want to meditate or write in their journal, or just sit there. It's okay to just sit there and do nothing, but they go around and make sure that everyone's doing okay. Imagine if we actually had people whose sole job it is in our communities to go around and look after people.
Yes.
So I like to think about kind of ways that you can be a sheriff of good times in your day-to-day life. And the don't have to be grand gestures like I'm going to take you to an amusement park or Disney World or give you $1 million for your startup. It's more like
those are good. But what?
Like I'm going to buy coffee for this person, or I'm going to send this person with this person a little note or a little piece of paper that with a nice quote on it, right? Or just actually I'm going to introduce myself to people in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Right? What a radical concept.
Yes.
Things like that. And there's a lot of science that shows that if you're coming to a relationship from a place of positivity, right, and trying to let people know what else is happening in their community or things that you're doing, hey, I'm going to invite you to this. That's really important. Shasta Nelson, who's she's actually a pastor and she became a friendship expert. She just wrote a book called The Business of Friendship. She says that there are kind of 3 key qualities to friendship. Vulnerability, right, which I know you all talk about a lot. Being open and being authentic and telling your story.
Friends, even saying you want friends vulnerable. And that's good.
Right, exactly. And saying that, hey, you're lonely. Maybe you want to go deeper. Consistency, so having that routine, and then positivity, right? If you're always kind of like, well, things aren't going well. I'm not happy. Busy. I don't want to do anything. That dinner you're inviting to me sounds lame. I don't like that restaurant. Last time we went to that bar, it sucked. Okay, maybe the bar is not the best bar, but your friends want to hang out, right?
Right. Okay.
So coming to the place from a place of positivity is, I think, also part of the sheriff of good times.
So there's 2 things here. One is I think we have to take that mentality when your whole job as being a kid was just to make friends, like that was your whole job. Is it maybe this is a part-time job? Maybe like it's a side hustle, right? Like let's have a side hustle of making friends. Like you actually have to invest in it that much that you have to think of it as like a side business or a side hustle. The second thing is the sheriff of good times not only coordinates, but also looks for good. And what I mean by this is when I read that, I was like, oh, I've been making a mistake, which is I have mistaken regular dinners for good times. A regular dinner is okay. It's consistent, but it misses like the good times. And that's why I think some of my friendships can get a little stale. So I would say is 2 things. One, we have to actually try to reach out and be the sheriff. But second, like it's a good time. It's not like the default bar you always go to,
right?
Unless it's a good time.
It's an experience. It's unique. It's something special. It's something to look forward to. Hopefully it's something recurring. There's, again, science shows that the mere exposure effect, the more you hang out with someone, the more you see them, the more you are likely to like them, right? That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So again, if you have something just a one-off, like let's hang out like in 3 weeks, that's not as great as, oh, we're going to do this cooking club together once a week, or a book club once a month. That type of thing, where you're like, it's on the calendar. You're looking forward to it. One person hosts 1 week, that 1 month, and the next person hosts the next month, that type of thing.
Perfectly segued into another tip that I found very practical, which is Monday night activity club. So I love this idea because I was like, oh, Monday nights always suck. But not if you have something, right? Like nothing's ever cool on a Monday night. It's like, but when you have something on Monday night, you look forward to Mondays. So tell me about Monday Night Activity Club. And I'm going to give a challenge to everyone watching to start, join, or do a Monday Night Activity Club every week or every month, depending on your introversion or extroversion levels. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so this started with my friend crew when I lived in Washington, D.C., nearly over 10 years ago at this point. And it was very simple. It was started by my friend Gail, who was just looking for something to do on Monday nights. Because again, there's nothing to do with on Monday nights, and DC has a very kind of happy hour driven culture. So when people do hang out, it's really just, oh, let's get a glass of wine, let's get a beer, which can be fun, but gets pretty boring.
Yeah.
It gets stale, you know? And she was looking for something to do. So she's like, okay, I'm going to start a Monday night activity club, which is simple as I'm going to get together with other people that want to hang out on Monday night and do something that they want to do. And every Monday night activity club, somebody different gets to decide what the activity is. And it became this community. Actually, this wasn't a club, it was a community, because people were like, okay, I'm looking for, I need a new roommate, or I'm looking for another place or an apartment, or does anyone have any recommendations for this, for that? So it had actually a listserv, and people became really close friends because of it. And it's so simple. And by the way, you don't have to do it on Monday nights. It can be any night. We just did it on Monday nights. But it was such a simple but beautiful way to connect. And I know what you're saying. Maybe you're like, okay, well, there's not a lot of people in where I live to do that. Maybe you have to find them, right? Or you can post on meetup.com or Eventbrite, which will allow you to find more people where you live.
Or I also had success with this when I lived in Los Angeles, and I started a book club because I didn't know people, was go to the places you hang out and see if they have a bulletin board. I like it was old school style, like Facebook existed. But I was like, I love this coffee shop. I'm going to post on their bulletin board, and I'll get other people who like this coffee shop who live in my neighborhood, which is kind of nice.
I love that.
I want to read one more thing that I thought was great. So being a good friend, being a sheriff of good times, vulnerability, consistency, and searching out the good, creating a ritual or a habitual thing that you can do, ideally on like a Monday or a day that you dread. The second thing that I think is really important there is, what do you do once you get together? Right? Like maybe you get all these people together, and then you're like, now what? Right? So I do love activities. That's why I like the Monday Night Activity Club, is you're doing something, so it's a little easier. But let's say that you are trying to have conversation. I love this. 20 questions more interesting than what do you do? Okay. Are you okay if I read some of my favorites? Please. Okay, I'm going to read some of my favorites here. And by the way, if you have any that you like, put them below the video so we can add. Okay, so this is what I want you to ask when you sit at dinner, when you sit at a coffee shop, when you meet someone, not what do you do? What's something unexpected that happened to you this week? What's the most memorable concert you've ever been to? Mine, Backstreet Boys, or 98 Degrees when everyone booed Jessica Simpson. They didn't know she was going to be famous.
Yes.
Who in your life makes you laugh out loud? What's the worst date you've ever been on? If you could travel anywhere tomorrow, where would you go? Greece. What does your dream home or apartment look like? And lastly, what's a creative project you want to bring into the world? These are just different. They spark. And I think a trap is sometimes people work so hard to get people together, and the conversation is boring because they're asking, how are you? What did you do? What do you do? Where are you from? And it's stale. So I want you to get out of that trap. Talk to me about those questions, how you came up with those questions, why they matter. Yeah.
You know, the conversation doesn't go anywhere. But if you lead with one of these, and of course there are infinite number of questions, it's just something interesting, something you care about. I'd rather you even come up with your own questions, like the 3 questions you like to ask when you go out.
Put them below.
Right? They can be like, what's your favorite record? Whatever they are.
Yeah. Whatever passion that you have and you want to talk about, ask that question. And I want to hear where they are.
Exactly. It's kind of like you're taking back ownership over your social interactions. You're not saying, oh, this is how we do things now. Here we go, 2021. Like, these are the questions, right? You're instead saying, here's who I am. I'm authentic. This is me. I'm going into this space. You're actually thinking, what do I want to bring into this space? Another chapter, I talk about kind of bringing an offering, right? And that can be a gift. It can be like, I bake chocolate chip cookies for everyone. Amazing. I love chocolate chip cookies. It could be, I'm going to bring my guitar because I love to play guitar. It can be, I'm going to let everyone know about the book club I'm starting. Whatever it is.
By the way, if you have a book club, you could bring extra copies of the book, like buy 5 copies of the book, like paperbacks, and then give them out to people to encourage them to your book club.
Easy. Beautiful.
So following your advice today, I just moved to Austin, Texas, like relatively recently. And there's a new friend who just moved here from South Dakota. And like, I was going to have a girl crush on you. Like, I really want to hang out with you. And so I asked her out to coffee this morning and she said yes. And following your advice, I brought a huge basket of cucumbers from my garden. And also that's so funny. It's also hilarious. I brought her like a giant cucumber and we laughed about it. And I was like, I feel like the fastest way to make friends is just like give you a basket of cucumbers. And it was great. And so thank you for that. And it totally worked. And we got to talk about gardening, which is great.
And now you're going to be able probably remember that forever. Again, it's these small little things that will, one of my goals with the book is to kind of just rethink how we trying to put friendship more at the center of our lives. Mm-hmm. And it's little things like that. It's not these grand gestures or sending your friends money or stuff like that. It's just letting people in your life that you care about know that you care about them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the final note I want to make here, and Adam, I'll let you do a final note too, is I think all of this takes a little bit of courage. Like that's something that I haven't acknowledged is every single tip that I've given. If it makes you a little bit nervous, you should probably try. And that's because I think that the only way that we get out of loneliness, the only way that we build really important things in our life is like to use a little bit of courage, like to be a little bit brave. And so, yeah, it took courage for me to hand her a basket of cucumbers and hope that she understood the joke. It takes courage to be a sheriff of good times. It takes courage to reach out to people and say, hey, let's do a book club. It takes courage to call people who you haven't talked to in 4 years.
Totally.
But that is where I think the magic happens. So Adam, I'm so grateful for you. Is there any last minute tips or words of wisdom?
On a similar vein, I just want to say I think that the thing I learned through this book is even as I was interviewing kind of community building experts and friendship experts and people that run gatherings for a living is everyone is struggling with this, right? You are not alone. So the truth is that we're all really figuring out how to have deeper connections, what a meaningful connection looks like in the age of, liking photos and emojis and communicating via DMs and all that. We're all kind of navigating it. It's something that I think is one of the great challenges of our generation and kind of the coming years of just living in this hyper connected technological world. So you're not alone, and it's a journey and it starts small. And I think that that's what this is about. It's taking little baby steps along the way to find more people that you can go deeper with in this world. Because it's really everything. And it's the most important thing is to have people in your life that you care about, that care about you.
Well, I thank you for writing this book. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. I want to thank you for watching, being a little courageous. Share some conversation starters that you love below. Share a step that you're going to take to be a sheriff of good times. Tell me your Monday night activity. I love it. Adam, I want to thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me, Vanessa. Thank you all for listening. Yeah, I want to see your comments. So please put them in the thread and feel free to reach out to me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget to check out all of these goodies.